The current passport, the members are from
These two seats will be off. These two seats will be off. The other two seats will be off. Those two seats. Okay. The two seats will be off.
Good morning, Chairman and distinguished senators. My name is Godwin Emefiele, Governor, Central Bank of Nigeria.
Good morning.
Of the Senate Committee on Banking, most distinguished Senator Rafiu, other very distinguished senators of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, member of this Committee on Banking and Finance, my colleagues from the Central Bank of Nigeria, deputy governors, directors, other distinguished personnel that are here present this morning, members of the press, ladies and gentlemen. Please permit me to say that my name is Godwin Emefiele, born on August 4th, 1961. I hail from Delta State and from Ika South local government area in Delta State. Like this, my resume already said, I attended the University of Nigeria in Nsukka, graduated in bachelor's degree in finance and banking in 1984, second class upper, and in 1986 also bagged my master's in business administration in banking and finance from the same university. Shortly after my bachelor's degree program, I did my National Youth Service Corps program, which is a mandatory program for graduates in the Nigerian educational institutions in 1984. Finished in 1985, proceeded for my master's degree, and then from there graduated in 1986. In between the period from my bachelor's degree, NYSC, and master's degree, and the early part after I graduated from my master's in business administration, I had an opportunity to be a lecturer at the University of Nigeria in Nsukka and at the University of Nigeria, Port Harcourt. During this period, I was involved lecturing mathematics of finance, bank management, as well as the principles of insurance. After that, in 1987, I started my career in banking, beginning from Nigerian American Merchant Bank, that was then known as the First Bank Boston. And from there, I moved on to Zenith Bank, being one of the pioneer staff of the bank, resumed on July the 16th, 1990, and rose through the ranks at Zenith Bank until I was appointed the managing director and group chief executive of the bank on August 1, 2010. For 4 years, I was the managing director and group chief executive of Zenith Bank, and on June the 3rd, I assumed the position following the approval of the then president and the confirmation of the Senate of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Assumed my current position as the governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria on June the 3rd, 2014. When I resumed work on June 3rd, 2014, precisely on June 5th, 2014, I unveiled a vision I unveiled a 5-year vision to set the tone about what I intend to do or those activities I intend to pursue as the governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria. Like you all know, most important of this is the core mandate of the Central Bank of Nigeria as the monetary policy authority in Nigeria, that the primary mandate will be to pursue price and monetary stability, exchange rate stability and reserve management, and also defending the currency of the country. This is just one out of several other mandates that is enshrined in the Central Bank of Nigeria Act about the responsibilities of Central Bank of Nigeria. The Act also provides that the Central Bank of Nigeria shall also be involved in development finance activities, and indeed this was Section 33, subsection 1 of the Central Bank Act. So when I unveiled my vision on June the 5th, 2014, achieving macroeconomic stability was a most important task. And when you talk about achieving macroeconomic stability, you are looking at keeping the inflation level at acceptable level, keeping the exchange rate at acceptable, stable, and sustainable level, and also looking at issues bordering on the interest rate. Distinguished senators and ladies and gentlemen, if you, in trying to determine what did we achieve in the last 5 years, it is important that we cast our minds back and to begin to say, by June or pre-June 2014, and indeed post-2015 into 2017, what was the state of the Nigerian economy, and now post-2017, what is indeed the state of the Nigerian economy. Distinguished senators, if you cast our minds back, there was a time in this country where precisely sometime around August, September 2008, Nigeria's reserves stood precisely at $62 billion. This was after $22 billion had been used to pay off the Paris Club debt. Between that time, 2008 or 2009 precisely, and into about 2014, we saw a boom in the crude oil market. Crude prices rose, and I usually say that rose at an astronomical level, averaging at least $110 per barrel over this 5-year period. Rather unfortunately, reserves plummeted, and by January 2014, reserve had dropped to $40 billion. When I assumed office on June 3rd, 2014, reserve had further plummeted to $37 billion. And unfortunately, immediately after, by about the third quarter of 2014 and into the early part of 2015, another round of global crisis did set in. This global crisis resulted in a situation where crude prices dropped from all those, what I call the all-time high of those period of averaging $120, $130 per barrel, to indeed as low as $23 in January 2016. As a result of the pressure, at the same time while this was happening and reserve was dropping, as a result of the pressure on the reserves, imports were high, exports were reducing, export revenues from oil was also dropping dramatically, and we had no choice, and we saw a situation where as a result of the pressure on the reserve, exchange rate had to move. Exchange rate moved at that time from $155 to the barrel, initially moving to 168 naira per barrel, to about 197 naira per dollars to the barrel. And after those adjustments were done, we saw inflationary pressures arising from imported inflation, coupled with the fact that we increased the price of petrol and energy prices. The inflationary pressure on the economy became so immense that we saw, aside from seeing reserve plummeting to as low as $23 billion in October of 2016, we saw inflation rising from January 2016, where it was 9%, to as high as 18.72% in January of 2017. Those were the periods that things were really bad. So I'm trying to say inflation went up, exchange rate had gone up, reserve had dropped, and of course, naturally, there was pressure on purchasing power, and also the level of unemployment, of course, naturally rose. Those were the periods where we say we had macroeconomic instability. But what did we do during this intervening period? We took a couple of decisions and said, having adjusted the currency from 155 to about 200 naira to the dollar, that there was a need for us, with the support of the fiscal and political authorities, that there was a need for us to begin to look at the demand and supply side of foreign exchange, of the foreign exchange demand in Nigeria. We went into a regime of restricting foreign exchange. I'm sure some of you will not forget in a hurry the issue of the imposition of FX restriction on the importation of certain items into the country. This was intended to put pressure on imports so imports could drop and somewhat move closer to export revenues so we could be able to see less pressure on the reserve. Fortunately, we've seen imports dropping drastically from as high as almost about 600, at that time, almost $6 billion on a quarterly basis, to today where it is significantly and drastically lower, even lower than $1 billion. Now, the issue therefore is, with all these pressures, having adjusted the demand and luckily trying to see how we could balance on price, which is the foreign exchange rate, we also introduced a couple of intervening actions that will help to boost the supply of foreign exchange into the market. We try to encourage people to export so that export earnings can rise. We also tried as much as possible to see how we could encourage various stakeholders that had a responsibility for inflowing capital into the country to see to it that they developed a lot more confidence in the Nigerian economy for them to be able to do more business in Nigeria. And following a couple of actions that we took, but particularly, and speaking about the institutionalization of the investors and exporters window, we felt there was a need for us to have an open, transparent market where people who have foreign exchange should be free to sell their dollar into the market, and those who had need for foreign exchange to buy or import items should be able to procure foreign exchange to import the items that they wanted to bring in. At the time when the investors and exporters window was open, precisely in April of 2017, as a result of the pressure on the reserves, exchange rate had gone up to as high as 525. And we began a process at that time to open the market of selling dollars into the market. It's just that investors begin to see confidence that we mean business. Shortly after we started selling, the confidence came up, and then we started to see even the exporters also coming in. And of course, as the stakeholders kept coming in, we saw a situation where supply of foreign exchange into the economy outstripped the demand. And of course, naturally, we now saw an appreciation in the currency, dropping to the level that is about 360 naira to the dollar today. We have managed to sustain this now for over 2 years, and we are determined to continue to sustain this level of stability in the foreign exchange market, because we do realize that our people and businesses, for them to be able to plan their business, need to be sure about the direction of monetary policy. And that is the reason we say that we will continue to maintain the stability in the foreign exchange market. So as a result of these actions, I would say we have seen some macroeconomic stability in the industry or in the economy. Exchange rate now converging substantially at about 360 naira to the dollar. Inflation trending downwards for almost about 25 consecutive months now, from about 18.72% in January 2017 now to as low as 11.27% inflation. On the area of interest rates, we tried as much as possible, but unfortunately, we haven't quite achieved what we thought we should achieve on interest rates moderation. But if you cast our minds back, that sometime in 2016-2017, that the Treasury bills rate was about 18.5%, and today Treasury bills rate dropping to as low as about 13%. We believe we've tried, but we still have a lot of work to do to bring the rates down so the market can read our signals and begin to also flow in the same direction. Aside from macroeconomic stability, ladies and gentlemen, distinguished senators, we also went aggressively to say that we should be able to do something to really boost development, because we said that the Central Bank of Nigeria, under the vision that we set in June 2014, will be a people-focused central bank where our downtrodden people, our masses, we truly feel the impact of monetary policy in their lives. And that was why we invoked the powers conferred on us in the Central Bank Act to move aggressively into the area of development finance. And because we did it, because we felt, because interest rate was somewhat on a broad basis high in the market, that there was a need for us to really direct attention to some priority sectors in the economy. And in this case, we decided to focus on agriculture and manufacturing. We came up and began to say that we would intervene very aggressively in the area of agriculture and manufacturing by ensuring that if you are going into primary agriculture, you are producing what we need in the country, that you should be able to have good and easy access to credit. And having access to credit meant that you not only having the access, but that you have access at a moderated and low interest rate, and in this case, single-digit interest rates. Ladies and gentlemen, we have substantially achieved that, because by the numbers that we have today, in the last 3 years, the Central Bank of Nigeria, aside from close to almost 300 billion that has been invested in commercial agricultural credit scheme, in some of our real sector support facility, but primarily in the area of supporting our smallholder farmers as well as our small and medium enterprises, the Central Bank has granted under its Anchor Borrower program close to 190 billion naira to over 1.1 million smallholder farmers in Nigeria across different product ranges in Nigeria. We are not talking about rice. We've also extended this to cassava. We've extended it to maize. We've extended this to soya beans. We've extended it to palm oil. And indeed, I'm assuring everybody that given this mandate, we will extend it such that, and it's a promise I make today, that in 2 years, we should be able to see that the impact of Central Bank's agricultural program would have permeated all the nooks and crannies in Nigeria. That is a mandate, that is a promise that we make today. In the area of the manufacturing sectors, we also said that those who are interested in going into manufacturing ventures that will entail either plant expansion or investing in new manufacturing products, that we will see to it that they are able to access our intervention funds at no more than 9%. Those are some of the things we're doing. But ladies and gentlemen, haven't achieved the level of macroeconomic stability that we're talking about today. We're saying haven't achieved a low inflation rate, saying that haven't achieved a macroeconomic stability in Nigeria, with exchange rate, inflation moderating, and also with our development finance activities, that I worry. Worry in the sense that we just came back from the IMF World Bank program in April, and the world, in the World Bank, IMF's World Economic Outlook, Nigeria is positioned as a country whose population will grow and rise to over 425 million people by the year 2050. That will present Nigeria as a country with the third largest population in the world after China and India, and indeed surpassing the United States of America in population. I worry, and I do think that we all should worry, that a lot of work needs to be done to make sure that we are able to put in place policies that will make life good for these 425 people or 450 million people when we're the third largest population in the world. So we, from the Central Bank, from the monetary policy side, have come to a realization that using the instrumentality of the Anchor Borrowers Program, where access to credit is being provided to our masses all over the country, that it will be a way to generate employment and boost economic activity amongst our rural population. The results are there for us to see that as a result of our Anchor Borrowers Program, where we have disbursed, like I said earlier, almost close to about 190 billion people, we have disbursed over 190 billion naira to over 1.1 million smallholder farmers, cultivating over 1.3 million hectares of land, that we need to do more of this. That as we do this, we make finance available at low interest rate, we make access to credit easy for our people, and in doing this, we will be able to create jobs for them and improve the livelihood of our people. That is a sole mandate that we make, and distinguished senators, I am very optimistic that this can be achieved. For time, I think I need to make it brief. I thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to speak with you.
Your Excellency, my Chairman, coming from your own constituency of the banking industry, having seen all you've done, having seen your performance, and what you have put in place, and your vision and the dream for this nation, I want to stand to say that we shall continue to pray for you, that you will be able to actualize those dreams you had in mind, and this nation will be a better place, and the economies of this country should stand a better chance to grow. More especially, it is our desire in this country to see that the currency of this country take the preeminent in the globe, take more advantage, because we have all it takes to bring our currencies to the limelight and to bring and promote this country. So I wish you well.
Chair, my distinguished colleagues, let me start by congratulating the Governor of Central Bank for his second term, and also congratulate you for your very authentic, articulate, and inspirational presentation. Of this, I commend you for a job well done. Mr. Governor, I am from the north, far north in particular. You have started a project about agriculture, which everybody now is happy with. What are your plans, or what are you planning now, so that at least you will boost it and increase, so that more people will benefit in this agriculture? Then, secondly, people are still complaining that foreign exchange is still a bit high. What are you doing to see that this is substantially reduced? These are my questions. Thank you very much.
I've been an advocate of reduction in MPR. and it has just gone down with just about, I think, about 0.5%. And with that 0.5%, are you expecting any serious impact with 0.5% of the MPR going down? Just academic to that, sir. Thank you very much.
Electing the governor. I want to remind us that this is a reappointment. It's not a fresh appointment. What that means is that in the wisdom of the president, you've passed the exam. So what you deserve is promotion. I want to thank you and commend your efforts and urge their colleagues to emulate from you so that they can also get their own promotion. Thank you.
It's very simple. I feel that Central Bank has a lot to do with the development of banking industry. Because banking industry is the nerve center of value chains that carry out banking operation for those who are in.
Microphones are well getting used.
Oh, microphone? Sorry.
Let's put two together.
Yes. Okay. The question I would love to re-ask you, this is your tenure, this new tenure. You have ECOWAS clearing house. If you can use this period to try and develop that.
We're not still hearing that.
You can't hear me.
That is how you speak.
So as a result, Mr. Governor, please use that period to try as much as possible to make sure you establish one is the ECOWAS clearing house for the sub-region, so to increase our business development in the sub-region.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Governor, I had wanted clarification on 2 points, but when you were discussing the exchange rate, I think you kind of explained that very well. So the only question I want to ask on that is what you predict for the next 4 years. Is the exchange rate going to improve? I quite understand that you have been reappointed because you did very well. After all, they said, why change a winning team? Now, the second question, which has actually been agitating a lot of minds in the media, is this question of multiple exchange rate. My question is, even if there is something like that, how has it improved the economy of Nigeria over when we had a single exchange rate? Thank you.
By Buhari others congratulate the governor for the appointment for this region. He's being the second governor to get appointed in this of Central Bank by my own estimation. The first man was late after him, no other governor has been rare opportunity of being appointed and he will get to that. So congratulations. So on this call, I want to tell my colleagues that I work with that it's not only you who are constant that is supporting the government. We are all Nigerians and the support of the government. I think international community is doing well. So in getting my second term, you have done well. I think it will be good if you tell Nigerians what you think made the president appoint you. So there are other colleagues, like Excellency Pope Masek. It's good so that other people will also benefit from all this here. Being the most senior governor in Nigeria, government candidate. If you can, that's what was true. What is the ideal you to us? We in Nigeria and the president of Nigeria. Thank you very much.
Thank you first for the privilege, because our rules say that we can sit, but we cannot be heard. So I thank you for giving us the opportunity to be heard. All I need to do in this regard is also to commend the governor of Central Bank, because People say that when you're wearing a bracelet, you don't need to continue to look at it. You are a bracelet that is very fine, that everybody is seeing, and therefore your reappointment is well deserved. I commend you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
The chairman and distinguished senators, both the banking committee and those who have come to give support to this committee. I want to thank all of you for the kind words that you have made about the way we have gone about our assignments and responsibilities in the last 5 years. I am grateful to you and I thank you. Mr. Chairman, you talked about the fact that now that the Central Bank of Nigeria has a full complement of its Committee of Governors and its board, that Nigerians expect a lot more from us, the Monetary Policy Authority. Mr. Chairman, you are very, very correct. And in explaining this or in supporting what you said, most of us here, or even outside this room, we travel outside the country. When you travel outside the country, you see the way other countries look. Sometimes you come back and you shed tears for our country, Nigeria. I want to cast our minds back to the period of the Asian crisis in 1997 into 2000 and 2001. The countries in the Asian region were faced by crisis. Some of those countries in the Asian region started development plan with Nigeria in 1960-1961. They were hit by those crises and they learned a lot from those crises. And they have moved their countries forward, and indeed substantially. I recently paid a visit to attend the board of the International Islamic Liquidity Mining Corporation in one of the Asian countries, and please permit me not to mention the name. I entered the country happy, but I came out of the country sad. Sad because I could see the level of development that this country has achieved over the last almost 50 years. And I cast my mind back and I look at our country, Nigeria, that what have we achieved? This is what gives me the push that at my age of 57, running to 58, I saw this country when it was good. Then I'm looking at the country today and I'm saying, I don't want to say it's bad, but I want to say that we do have a lot of work to do. Because the country has no doubt receded somewhat. So from our side in the monetary policy, we will do everything that is possible to ensure that with the mandate that is vested on us, that we will push this country forward. And I'm happy that you have all testified to what we have done in the last 3 to 4 years. And I'm not saying that it's that simple, but I'm also saying it is difficult, but we will do our best.
issues were raised about what are our plans for agriculture. Indeed, I must say that the credit should go to the president, because he had at some point in the course of interacting with him said that we must, and he has said so openly, that as a country, faced by financial crisis and reserve pressures at the time in 15 and 16, that we should all begin to think about producing what we eat and eat what we produce. And this just was the point that we took from the word of wisdom from the president, and we set ourselves on a program which today is like has caught fire like a Hamatan fire. The Ankobora's program. Aside from the Ankobora's program, we're also looking at special programs targeted at wholesale growth of agricultural sector in Nigeria. Aside from rice and other small food crop items, we've started looking at palm oil, because we believe that this country has a lot of potentials in palm oil. If we think about what this country was in the 50s and the 60s, Nigeria being a country at that time that controlled 40% market share in the palm oil industry, exporting its palm oil to different parts of the world. But because we found crude oil, we receded and we abandoned it. For some of you who are very good in doing your calculations, go and check today. The price of a barrel of palm oil is more than the price of a barrel of crude oil. So what happened to our country? There are countries where they have the opportunities in agriculture and also have opportunities in the crude sector. They didn't let their guards down, but unfortunately we did. And that's what we are paying for today. So that when there's some external shock in the crude oil market, we sneeze, but we only smile when the market is good. We would grow that market back again. And after that, we will go into cocoa in the southwest area to be sure that what we are doing permeates all the nooks and crannies of this country. Because we think we owe Nigerians this. We talked about small and medium enterprises. We talked about some of the youth restiveness that we have today. Under the auspices of the Bankers Committee, we have come together with a creative industry fund that will tap the innate skills and entrepreneurial spirit in our youth today. And I want to assure all that in the course of time, and shortly too, you will begin to see the hands, you will begin to see smiles on the faces of our youth who have creative and innate talents in creating jobs for themselves and also for others. I say this because the road ahead is still rough. The road ahead is still very tough. But I want to use this opportunity to appeal to all Nigerians and our friends that a time comes in the history of the country that you have to learn to respect the policies and laws of the country. Part of the problem that we've seen in Nigeria today is lack of respect and not respecting and obeying the policies of this country. Nigeria is very good at putting in place policies that are sound and are workable, but implementation has always been almost zero. And it is arising because we see sabotage activities. We see people, when policies are made, when they pick up the piece of paper about the policy, what they think about is how do we circumvent this policy, and not how do we respect and work and respect the letter and intent of this policy for the good of our business. The Central Bank of Nigeria, by the special grace of God, given this mandate, will push very hard to ensure that those who seek to undermine the policies of Nigeria without respecting the laws of this country will be brought to book under any circumstance. And that's why I say, please pray for us, because the road ahead is still rough. I thank you very much for listening. Distinguished Senator, a couple of people have raised issues that we have multiple exchange rates. And we have, given the opportunity, said we do not have multiple exchange rates. When you talk talk of multiple exchange rates, you talk about divergence in exchange rates. Substantially today, our rates have converged around 360 naira to the dollar. Because the investors and exporters window, which is the dominant market for procurement of foreign exchange today, hovers around that rate. But what you will find, and understandably so, is multiple windows, and we don't have any apologies for it. And I'll explain. Small business, or you're even a traveler. What we saw that resulted in us creating multiple windows, like you will see, that we started saying, hey, listen, that we want to make sure that those who seek to travel, who will normally go to a bank to ask for foreign exchange, that the banks will turn them away, and these people will seek to go to the black market to buy foreign exchange. We said no, that banks, we will allocate specific sums of money to you to allocate to people who want to travel. We will allocate specific sums of money to you to allocate to those who are into the small and medium enterprise business. And we will allocate funds to you for you to give to those who are in your corporate sectors. So what you will find, like I said, you will find multiple windows that you will not, because the rates at which foreign exchange is traded through all these windows are substantially the same. So there is no multiple exchange rate, but I would agree there is multiple windows, and it is for good reason. Thank you, sir.
I've spoken about everyone, wishing you well. We have representation of the whole Nigeria, the whole region. And it's always very, very difficult to get that. My even senior colleague can attest to that one. So I see that as a very, very overwhelming good news. I wish you well. I pray for you, for God to continue to guide you. And on the night note, we now know the reason. Because of the group, people you have worked with, seeing everybody is here, you must have been relating with almost everybody, and everybody is seeing your work. And the way you now make your presentation, everybody is commenting positively. I wish you well. And on the night note, we now know the reason why there are some videos in the media. Because in Nigeria, once you are a good person, some people will always try to on that note, we wish you well. Mr. Chairman. And we'll be just like the SSC, we will expeditiously take our reports to the plenary for consideration. Thank you. You can take power.
All my friends. No, now do the trouble that I come out. You think that's yours, I'll tell you, I'm sorry.